In life, do you know how to capture and obtain your flow state? For former collegiate basketball player Solomon Berezin, he often referred to this mindset on the court for success. However, he was thirsting for more, so once his collegiate basketball playing days were over, he pivoted to his other desire he had in the back of his mind to start a business. And now, of course, he's the host of the Ebb Flow podcast, where he talks to industry experts on everything relating to holistic health and nutrition. He joined me this week to discuss his collegiate playing days and how the transferable skills he learned on the court have helped him transition to be a successful writer and entrepreneur. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Drawing a correlation and obvious distinction between his love of basketball and his desire to transition and adopt a holistic health lifestyle is where I began my conversation with Solomon.
Okay. So playing in high school and in college, basketball was pretty much my main focus and drive growing up, and I had goals and intentions to kind of to play overseas or as far as I could. It was just, I just loved the game so much. I would spend a lot of time practicing it, playing it, watching it, etc. But after a couple injuries in college, that kind of really gave me the space to step back and observe, how I'd been doing, how I was approaching the game, and what was it that I really loved most about the game. I really started to consider those kind of deeper questions. That's something else that we could get into. But there was originally, I was going to be playing an additional year in college and earn my master's degree. But in that summer, before the new semester would have started, I was curious because I was curious what drove me so much into this game of basketball. I loved and I often thought about how much I just loved the game, but I didn't really, up until that point, really sit down and have like an honest kind of observation, look at it, how I've been approaching the game. And when I did that, along with meditation and their mindfulness stuff that you happen to come across that I'm into, I realized that what I was really passionate about, more so than, let's say, the game of basketball, was the everything that kind of went into the process of becoming a good player, more so than the actual playing. If you can kind of notice that difference or understand that difference. And what that included, that I realized, was like the nutrition, the fitness, the mindset, essentially. And I talk about how, like, what's the purpose of the podcast that I have, Ebb and Flow, is everything that kind of would get me into that state of flow or that zone that athletes often talk about. But it's not just athletes. Everybody can experience it through, writing or playing an instrument, even having a podcast and talking to other guests, where you're just so present and aligned with the present moment, it's just such a beautiful experience, and it feels like you're connected to something much greater than yourself, and everything flows perfectly. Even if they're, let's say, in a basketball scene, you make a quote unquote mistake or turn the ball over, you don't judge it, and you just it ends up turning into something even greater. And so when I was considering and questioning what I really loved, and these answers came to me and they really resonated, in that, they kept returning, and that's where my focus was on. Like, yeah, I really like this stuff. In short, I ended up getting out of basketball and the graduate school because I was just studying business, but it was very similar to the undergraduate program. And then I made those interests that were part of the game that I loved my focus. And that led to, like they mentioned, the podcasting and just my own kind of curiosity and learning more about physical health, mental health, spiritual health. In a sense, not just my intention was no longer, just playing basketball and how I could get to the next level with that, but how to live life in this state of the flow. And that then, through wonderful adventures and experiences, led me to this online certification where I learned exactly what I was interested in: the science, psychology, and spirituality of nutrition. However, it was called a transformational nutrition certification, but it really covered all of just coaching and, behavioral psychology and spirituality, and then science of nutrition as well.
And how do you think this new lifestyle has impacted your everyday life away from the work that you do and the way that you carry your carry yourself now?
I think it has helped me approach every moment with a lot more intention, and not just every moment, but also larger scale, greater perspective, with having vision in mind, taking time for myself, being honest with myself, approaching different situations, environments a lot more consciously, and overall just in a more of a greater state of health.
And how do you believe that the podcast that you host, I know it's called the Ebb and Flow, when you talk to health industry professionals about being mindful and all the things that go along with being an alternative health expert. So, how do you think the podcast that you host has impacted your life as well?
How did having the podcast impact my life? Well, I would say in a couple ways. When I was first starting out, and I think when I was mentioning also how I was transitioning from playing basketball and studying business, I was also curious in questioning what to get into. And a couple entrepreneurs or other people I would listen to, they posed questions such as, what's something you could do every day for the rest of your life that you don't care, where it kind of, you're not looking for the accolades that it may bring, even though it may have that. And, one of the things that I really enjoy is speaking with and having conversations with individuals who I love learning about or learning from, who have influenced me in some way or are influencing to others. And when I could sit down and have a conversation with them, it is beautiful in two ways, in that you learn something from the other person and you build a relationship with the other person. And so that was one way, in that I loved doing that. Like, even right now with you, we got connected, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm here with you, you're here with me, and we're getting to discuss things that we've learned and share it with other people. Because I think listening into a conversation or being a part of a conversation is one of the best ways to learn, because you're also verbalizing things that you've learned, which then makes the connections of stuff you know a lot greater. Second, I really, I think it had an impact on my life in that I was able to reach out to these top influential people, whether it's in physical health, mental health, or spiritual health, and either just by listening to something about them or reading their book. And I was fascinated that I could reach out to them and be able to schedule, like, up to an hour length to speak with them about, whatever I'd read about them or from their book or work or whatever it was. And they willingly shared that time with me. And it just was a wonderful experience. So I really appreciated that. And I think, lastly, from all of those conversations, and each one I had and do have, it just furthers my own understanding about different subjects.
Thanks for sharing that with me, Solomon. And I'm also curious to ask you how basketball helped you. Do you believe in becoming a successful entrepreneur as well?
How did basketball help me in becoming?
Yeah, like, is there any transferable skills that you took from the game of basketball that has made you a successful entrepreneur?
Well, I would say I'm on the road to becoming a successful entrepreneur, or climbing not climbing, but improving the levels of what we can say successful is.
Fair enough.
I'm early on, but I would say all the effort that I put into basketball, the discipline, the focus, those are the ones that come up most at the moment. But it's an interesting question, because when I was playing basketball, I didn't feel like I really thought much about the skills that the game would transfer. Like, I was just so into the game that I would go practice for hours on a day, but I didn't consider it, or it never really crossed my mind, I'm being disciplined about my practice. It was just something I got up and did because I just loved it. It wasn't until I kind of got out of the game that I realized all these other skills that it taught me that I can apply to other areas of life.
And I know, yeah, and I also know that you have a passion for writing as well, about mindfulness and all of the practices you've learned from an alternative health standpoint. So I'm curious to ask you about your passion for writing and where that comes from as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, on my YouTube channel, I just published a podcast or a video about journaling. And that's really where I would say in conception of the joy of writing began, probably throughout growing up. Just, I loved journaling and putting things on paper because, well, for several reasons. Just being able to capture an idea or capture a thought or capture something I heard and put it on paper, and I could keep it and store it and return back to it another point in life, or see how I was thinking and feeling at a previous time in my life. And also, I would be able to further thoughts or ideas or whatever it may be a lot in a lot more orderly way when it was on paper, rather than sometimes, even though I think very clearly, and I can think orderly in my head about a certain working through a problem, let's say, when I put it onto paper, you could see it, and it was almost like it was getting things off of the head, even if you could think it clearly, and just put it on paper, and then you could work through it, and I could doodle and I could draw, and almost like in a creative way solve a problem, or have a conversation with myself about a decision to make, and address different aspects that are being considered. Then as I also like kind of built on that, and enjoyed and enjoyed writing, and experienced how it helped me in different aspects of my life, whether it was decision making, or learning, or whatever it may be. Then I could also, when I would read something or learn something and then write it down, I could, it was another way of like talking out, like having a conversation. It was another way of showing how much I actually learned. And then it just became more and more, and kind of took on a little bit of a um, wheels of its own, in that when I wanted to then share via writing a lot that I've learned, because that's one of the best ways to share and to learn information. Because when you're listening to a video or listening to audio, it's at a certain speed, but a person with a book, it's a lot more intimate. You're right there with the author, and you're reading at your own speed. So that's a little bit how I got into really enjoying to write.
Yeah, and I have a journalism degree, so I can appreciate that for sure. I think that the written word sometimes, Solomon, gets a little lost in the 24/7 news cycle where everything's on the internet now, huh?
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to also ask you about the power of connection in the sense of the sense of empowerment or fulfillment that you get when you help people sort of embrace the holistic lifestyle as your clients. I'm wondering about the sense of fulfillment that you get from that work.
It's very rewarding in that you help somebody see possibility, and not just like understand it intellectually, but be able to put into things that help the individual's life, and then emotionally experience that in understanding. And it came from the people who had helped in my own life, who were very giving, and whenever I had felt like I was stuck in something, or couldn't get out of a situation, and somebody was there to show me possibility, whether through different ways, and that it is possible to get out of a certain situation, or to heal from a bad habit, or a habit that's unserving. um, and then now be able to take what I learned from those individuals, and then in my own education, and now take it and to begin to help other individuals release habits that they no longer want to do, whether it's like a substance or a drug, or just wanting to think clearly, or release having a behavior that maybe is uncertain all the time, or insecure, and use things, and use meaning like approach it as a tool, things such as lifestyle, just behaviors, or nutrition, or meditation and mindfulness techniques, or even mindset, and uh, different beliefs, to help somebody see that they can have a lasting and positive impact on their own health.
And I'm curious, just before we wrap up, to ask you about the nutritional values of embracing the holistic lifestyle. What do you think that can lead people to living a more fulfilling life. And then just lastly, I'm wondering if at your young age, if you've given any thoughts on the imprint or legacy that you want to leave in the world.
The nutrition part for your first question, it has a huge impact on one's health, because if you look at the food that you're eating as information, and the body is taking the information, you want to feed the body, quality information, because then it's taking that information and storing it and sending it to different parts of the body for digestion or to the brain, whatever it is. So if you're feeding it information that's processed or processed food, and the body doesn't know what to do with it, it could, God forbid, in the long term lead to an illness or a sickness, or just unwanted fat and tiredness, and a lot that kind of goes into that realm. That's a little bit of a short answer to the nutrition, but it has a lot of value into supporting a healthy life and lifestyle and clarity of mind. That's the thing. It's not just part of physical health, but when you're eating well, and the gut, often referred to as like a second brain these days, when that's getting the right information from the food and the right food in the gut, then it's sending the proper information to the brain, and then you're thinking a lot more clearly. Because you're also feeling a little bit better, you're going to be thinking clearly and have a positive perspective. So that's even actually how the certification that I learned covered. It talked about the science and how the science of the nutrition influences your perspective and your mindset and psychology, and then that in turn influencing your the spirituality and your connection with yourself and with other people and with higher source. To the second question, you said how has what or have I thought about my legacy?
Have you given any thought to how you want your legacy to be defined? I know that you're still young, but I'm curious to know if there's something you want to leave for the people that have impacted your life, or a message or a lesson that you want to be known for.
Interesting. I think I'm gonna even have to write this down, or like return to this and send you perhaps a even longer answer, or just
a revised answer. That's fine.
No, but I'll answer it now. But I really like that question. It's like I've considered it before. I've written it down at my own answer, or like put it in a vision. Like I have a life vision that I like to have. But I would say legacy, to be one of the best, and of course to the best of my ability, leaders and educators in the area of health and wellness, to help individuals live in their unique state of flow, kind of like I talked about at the beginning with the state of flow, but in their highest vision, their state of flow, where they're so connected and healthy that, independent of conditions in their environment, that nothing kind of phases them, that they're so connected and trusting with what's going on and in their own self and their connection with others and with their higher power, with God, that they're always balanced. That is a little bit of the legacy that I'm have an intention to leave behind and to set. And then also with doing that, to show that as we all get into that state, to kind of arrive into an era where we're all living into that state of being, where we're all connected and there's not so much negativity or negative competition, but collaboration, and everybody's working together, and it's almost like a symphony going on.
Absolutely. And just very quickly, Solomon, if people want to get connected with you, how can they do that?
Yeah. You can check out my website, solomonezra.com, and there's different links in there to other social media. You can follow me on social media at king_Solomon8 on Instagram. On Facebook, it's my name, Solomon Ezra Berezin. You can check out either through my website or on podcast players, my podcast, Ebb and Flow, and on YouTube under the name Solomon Berezin. All O's in the name Solomon.
Fantastic, Solomon. Great to be with you this morning. Thank you for your time, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And I want to thank you for your time, your insights, and perspective. It was most appreciated.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be connected with you and to have this conversation. I checked out all the work that you've been doing on YouTube, and it's really inspiring.
Thanks so much, and have a great Houston Friday, would you?
I will, and you too.